It's time for Talkin Tauntauns, your Star Wars source at AIPTcomics.com.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Talkin Tauntauns. I am Jim Lehane, and with me as always is Nicole Herview. And with us is not JJ this week, but Connor Christensen, our roving reporter out in the field. Connor, this week we'll get into it, but we're talking The Fallen Star. And Connor a couple weeks ago had texted me. He's like, "Have you read this yet?" And I hadn't read it at that point, and so I'm like, "No, I'll get to it." He's like, "Oh, because I need someone to talk to about this." And so I thought it would be fitting to have him on the show to talk to us about the book with us.
Yeah, how about two someones to talk to talk about this with? What? You get it.
That's English.
I've been weirdly annoying Jim about Star Wars books and stuff lately. Like, not even texting me like, "Hey, did you catch Boba Fett yet?" Just being like, "Let me know when you read this, so I need to speak about it." Because it's like, I can talk to anybody about Boba Fett and complain about that, but like, I have very specific niche comments about books and whatnot.
Well, this one was about the comic series Trail of Shadows. Like, have you read Trail of Shadows yet?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Not yet. He's like, let me know when you do.
And the reason why, Nicole, have you read it yet?
No, I have not.
So, Jim, is the Torben thing we talked about. That's not like a spoiler, right?
Well, why don't we wait till we get it, because it's tied in with the book. So why don't we wait till we start talking the book?
There's just a moment that I had to text you about because I'm like, why? It doesn't ruin the story. It's not like a story revelation or anything like that. It's just like a character gets naked and you're like, why? What is the point of this? Why? So that was one of the many texts I've sent Jim in the last couple weeks that are just like, let me know when you read this. I need to talk about it. But yeah, Fallen Star. Excited to talk about it. We talked about it a little bit pre-show. Finished it a couple weeks ago. Couldn't refresh my memory because nobody wrote the plot summary on Wikipedia just yet. So I'm really happy that you guys just finished it, so I can like refresh my memory as we talk.
Sounds good. How are you guys doing? Nicole, how are you doing?
Oh, all things considered, I'm doing all right. Just trying to move one day at a time as the world falls apart yet again. I won't talk about it too much, but yeah, I'm just trying to stay off the internet as much as possible and bury myself in fiction. Yay. But otherwise, yeah, I'm doing okay.
They're called coping mechanisms.
Yeah, right. I have about a week off coming up because my lovely, wonderful boss about a month and a half ago was like, "Hey, considering Q1 is like tough on us, maybe book some time off in March." And this is like January. And I was like, "I feel fine though." And he was like, "Book some time off in March." And so I did. And now I'm like, thank God I did, because your girl's tired. Your girl is on the verge of burning out. So she needs a minute. So very, very excited to do nothing for a few days.
That sounds fantastic.
There is so much to doing nothing that is underrated.
Agree.
I took a week off in December, and people are like, "Where are you going? What? Like, are you going on vacation?" I was like, "I'm not leaving my house, and I can't wait."
Yeah, that's pretty much me. Yeah.
Hey,
Mind
but
you, nothing is leaving my house. There's so much to do here.
Jim, what the heck?
Yeah, that's a good point. I love keeping up with your renovation updates on Twitter, though.
Oh, anybody who's following me on Twitter will know that if you like pictures of woolly huskies, we just got a woolly husky yesterday. We rescued her. Keep in mind, we live in New York. We rescued her from the rescue that we've gotten our last 3 dogs at in Utah. My wife drove to Utah to pick her up and brought her home, and she just got here yesterday. And she is like a 10-month-old puppy that is absolutely huge. We're wondering if she's part Malamute instead of just woolly husky.
Well, she's gonna absolutely thrive in the upstate New York winters. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I was actually reading, apparently the woolly husky, their coats don't do well in the snow. They're bred for looks instead of function. Like
Oh, that's
huskies.
upsetting.
I get that.
Huskies have a double coat, which keeps the water off of them. It keeps them warm.
Yeah.
Whereas the woolly husky, apparently they're so poofy that it doesn't keep them dry and warm, and they just kind of get wet and soggy. And so they're not like good cold weather dogs, actually.
So that means your dream of starting an Iditarod team is not coming to fruition as quickly as you like.
It's not. We actually have 3 huskies. One husky mix, one pure husky, and then this woolly husky. So
You're kind of halfway there.
Yeah,
kind of. If any of them actually felt like pulling anything, that would be great. I'm good. Just leave me alone.
Wild.
Pull yourself, old man.
Yeah. All right. But I think that we have some big news to talk about.
Big news.
That we got off track and started talking about before we recorded, and then remembered, oh yeah, we're supposed to be recording this.
Yeah.
We should probably start doing that now.
Yeah, because I get real excited talking about this, so it's easy for me to just go on a tangent.
Your tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker. Then I'll see you in hell.
Hello, what have we here?
So, for anyone who has not been on the internet in the last couple days, week, I don't even remember when things started to come out. The Galactic Starcruiser, also known as the Halcyon, had their press event, which wasn't not even an event. It was like they basically got the same experience that anybody else who books a passage on the Galactic Starcruiser is going to get, so that they can tell us normal schmoes who didn't get a free pass to the Galactic Starcruiser exactly what we are going to get.
Yeah, it was, I think they went about a week ago, and then over the weekend, the embargo lifted. It's really, really interesting. Like, they took everyone's phone. So the media reps who were there did not have their own phone. They had, like, basically, like, not burner phones, but, like, the equivalent of a burner smartphone, really. So they could, like, take some videos to then, like, you know, export to their own whatever, and then use the data pad, the Play Disney Parks app, which becomes your data pad, which you use for a lot of the different missions and adventures you need a phone for while you're on the ship. So they weren't able to post anything. Somehow someone leaked something. I didn't watch it because I was like, I refuse. But somehow someone leaked something before the embargo came down. But that didn't get a lot of traction. It was over the weekend that things kind of...
Oh, I didn't even hear anything about a leak. And there's such a tightly controlled group of people that I can't imagine they won't figure out who did that.
Oh, they did. I think it just got taken down so quickly. And also a lot of people like myself, they're like, I'll wait. Like, I'm not going to support that. Like, what the heck? And I don't know who it was because I didn't care enough to find out.
Yeah, it does seem overall, though, despite, you know, what we were talking about before we started recording, the San Francisco Chronicle's headline was like, windowless bunkers, and then you click on the article and you realize, like, oh, that was taken out of context. Most of the reviews are very positive, it seems like. You know,
oh, yeah.
There seems to be the acceptance of, like, yes, it's very expensive. But if you are a Star Wars fan, if you're willing, everything I read said if you get what you put into it. If you don't want to really participate in the storytelling aspect, you're not going to like it that much. But if you're willing to completely suspend your belief and go into it and be like, I'm LARPing for the next 2 days, you will love it. I think I want to say it was the reporter for Engage It said it is a 2-day like dinner theater. Is more accurate than like an actual like hotel stay. And I was like, yeah, that sounds rad. That's what I want.
Right? It's super cool. Yeah, so I'm going to name drop the YouTube channels and the sites that I absolutely love, and maybe a couple influencers, but my big ones are Disney Food Blog. I swear by Disney Food Blog, and no, it's not just about food. Disney Food Blog and All Ears. Those are my go-tos for all things Disney parks, and they were both there. It's interesting. I can see Molly from All Ears in all of DFB's videos. It's very interesting. And I'm like, oh, hey, they were hanging out the whole time. But yeah, those are my two. And what DFB said a lot was, if you're an introvert, if you don't want to get into it, you're not going to enjoy this. If you like escape rooms, you're going to love this. It's like an escape room married a murder mystery dinner married a cruise. And that's what this is. And if you're not, and what Molly from All Ears said is, if you don't suspend your disbelief, like you just said, if you don't buy in, you will hate this. Like, it's a lot. And she said the only time she had trouble with that was in lightsaber training. And not because it sucks, because it looks like it sucks. And she said it was subpar. The technology broke. Like, there was just a lapse in the technology while they were in the room. And that kind of took her right out of it. She was like, okay. Like, it just didn't work, which is upsetting. But then I do want to comment, because, yeah, a lot of people are saying, I have a lot to say, obviously. But I'm going to pull this video up right now. I'm not going to play it. I just want to make sure I attribute it to the right person. So, obviously, the price is bananas. Absolutely bananas. But, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I think it's ridiculous. So, there is a TikToker. I don't know if she, like, what other platform she's on. But her name is Dealing in Absolutes. Dealing_in_absolutes. Excellent creator. Go check them out. I really like her a lot. We don't follow each other. No, we don't. But I follow her. And she broke down the price.
As a subtle call, like,
no,
it's fine. I follow her. She doesn't follow me. It's fine.
No.
Fine.
I get confused because some of them are my mutuals and some of them aren't, and I just forgot. It's literally, I don't care. Like, beyond, I don't care. But she broke down the price as like, okay, this is what you would pay per person for like a night at the Grand Floridian. And then she times that by 2. And then she was like, okay, all the meals, let me break that down. A park ticket, but you're only really going to be there for a quarter of the day. So here's a quarter of the price of a park ticket and the meal voucher that you get. And this, that, and the other thing. She's like, and let's throw a Broadway show in there. Because, yeah, but it's a 2-day Broadway show. So there's that. And she just kind of broke it down really, really interestingly. And it actually ended up being worth more than what the price of the Starcruiser was. She's like, and I'm not...
You know, that's exactly what they did, too, when they came up with this price.
Absolutely. And the argument that I do agree with is, this is not a room at the Grand Floridian, though. And while I agree, it's not. The room is not the whole resort, right? Like, if you look at a Disney resort, you're paying for not just your room and the amenities in the room, but the entire resort. So think of it that way. And in that sense, I think the price tag kind of matches. And even if it's a little off, you're paying for all these cast members to be there for 2 days straight and work like the whole time. So,
yeah. I like how
absurd.
you mentioned... I like how you mentioned like a Broadway show for 2 days. It's basically what you're doing. You're getting a room in a Broadway show. Yeah. And it is up to you whether you want to participate in the show or not, because they are going to be doing the job of what they're supposed to be doing. They are going to be in character. I liked Amy Ratcliffe's review on The Nerdist. She was my favorite one, and she kind of broke down all the positives and negatives. Like, she was very fair on it. Like you said, the lightsaber training was not that great. When we saw the video of it, it didn't look that great. I'm glad that it kind of like she's like, everything, like, this stuff is all fantastic. That's not so much, which kind of surprises me about that. That is what they went to go and highlight, was something that it's, I guess it was done. Because I know when they did a lot of that stuff, they weren't done with a lot of things. And so even,
and I don't doubt it.
Yeah, the advertisements we saw back in November, they that's why they're so spotty, is because there was a lot of things missing in the middle that weren't done. So you kind of had to jump around to get the stuff that was done. But I like
Yeah.
Amy's kind of ending of hers where she goes, the big question is this worth the price? And her response was, well, for me, it was free. Would I take free? Yes, I would definitely take free. And I laughed at that. And she's like, it 100% what you guys were saying. It's all in your mileage. How much are you willing to participate in this? And are you really going to go all out? And yeah, it's if you
And there's the dog.
And the
there's
puppies.
the dogs. The dogs are here. Yes.
Well, one thing I will say about the price that I guess is kind of turns it into a weird positive. So stick with me for a second. Everyone has said you get out of this what you're willing to put into this, and seeing as how it is kind of a group type setting, that means if you have one person in your group who's not, or is with your stay who's not super into it, that could have a negative impact on your experience.
Yeah.
And if it were cheaper, you might have more people who aren't these diehard Star Wars fans who would be willing to do it, who might then make your experience less immersive because they're not as into it. So yes, the price does suck, but in a way, and this kind of sounds elitist and gatekeeping, I don't mean it to come off that way, but in a way, it's kind of like, well, you are then literally buying in to the immersiveness. Like, I can't imagine there's somebody who's going to spend $5,000 on a 2-night stay and then also make fun of the people around them for getting into it. You know what I mean? So maybe in a way there's a way to look at the price as in, like, it's kind of excluding the people who aren't going to take it as seriously. I'm trying to look at it in a positive light.
I hear you. Yeah, and I guess the answer to that would be, you're also pricing out a lot of diehard fans, and that's a shame. Yeah. That is an app, like, well, I think that's a real shame. I mean, it's Disney. Did we expect less? They have to make money on this. And the amount of entertainment that you are buying, is it exorbitant? Absolutely. Do I think it's overpriced for what you are getting? I don't know. I'd have to do it to let you know that. And I think also that is subjective. Is it ridiculous? Of course it is. But for some people, it really is going to be worth it. It's going to be worth saving up. Especially for someone like me who's paying for just herself, that makes it a lot easier. Obviously, if you have a whole family, obviously there is a barrier there, and that is a shame.
That's
that
when
stinks.
you pick and choose your favorite
child. Yes, yeah. That's when you
or
pick
spouse
and choose. or spouse. Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Make it a competition. Like, whoever gets me the best birthday present this year is then for Christmas getting to go with me on the Galactic Starcruiser.
Yeah,
and it's kind of funny to me that the lightsaber dojo, whatever you want to call it, has been like the more disappointing aspect from people, because ironically for me, that's the one where I'm like, oh, that's cool, I guess, but I'm more interested in, like, it sounds more immersive and more fun to me to, like, go play Sabacc with random people.
Yeah, that looks really cool.
That's cool
Sabacc
to me.
Tournament looks dope.
Yeah, because
I thought that was cool.
That's a lot easier to just, from a production standpoint, to pull off and to really immerse someone in without having to rely on anything outside of just costuming and set decoration.
They probably spent a lot of money, time, and effort on that lightsaber training. And when people are turning around going, that blue shrimp looks amazing, the people at the lightsaber training are like, but the lightsaber training.
The lightsaber training.
We created the closest thing to a real lightsaber possible, and you're excited about shrimp?
Yeah, it's, I mean, all I've heard is that the food is good. Like, there are some people who really did not like the blue shrimp, but those are people who don't like shrimp, and I'm like,
I don't like shrimp, so I won't eat blue. That's why I saw the AB's review. The blue shrimp tasted like shrimp.
Great. Then I'm in. I'm in. I don't want anything else.
It seems like one of those comments that you're like, yeah, duh.
Yeah, like correct. They didn't make up a flavor for me. How dare they? Yeah, right. The food does look good. I am excited that, I mean, not only do you get like a meal ticket for Galaxy's Edge, but the buffets looked really good. And like, listen, I cannot recommend Molly from All Ears' the All Ears video. That's like an hour. She just put a second one up actually today. That's some different pros and cons of the Starcruiser, and I didn't watch that yet. But she put up like an hour-long review and like basically capturing everything that she did, and she is so good at making these videos and taking you on a journey with her. It's an hour long. I cannot recommend it enough. It actually sold me, and I said this to the guys before, it sold me more than any advertisement Star Wars Disney could probably ever do, because it's authentic and it's real and it's honest and it's showing you I won't spoil story moments, but there's a couple story moments that she shows with a spoiler alert and with a timestamp to skip to if you want to avoid spoilers. Something happened and she sat there and cried like for 2 minutes. And I was like, yeah, that's me. Like, she cried walking into the Starcruiser. That'd be me. Like, I was just like, I see what I would be going through. I cried watching her video. Let's put it that way. It was so cool. And it really was like, all right, I start saving as soon as I get back from my next vacation. I'm starting to save immediately. I don't know who I'm going with. I don't care. Like, I'm just going to start saving money because eventually I got to go. It looks really good, guys. Like, I think it's really cool. And also, I forgot to include, like, the price of, I mean, it's $15, but the price of your Genie Plus, like, Lightning Lane for both Rise of the Resistance and Smuggler's Run, it runs you about $20 to ride both of them, if not a little bit more. That's not nothing, and it's included, you know? Oh, and they have huge, like, carafes of blue and green milk that you could just drink the whole time.
Was it carafes? I thought it was like one of those little dispenser machines. You could just go up.
Yes, you're correct. You're correct. I'm using the wrong word. Yes. So cool.
And you could just grab them whenever. I'm like, I would weigh 500 pounds and be full of blue milk or green milk. I like the green milk better.
The droid in your room? The droid that like listens to you and talks to you in your room. I'm like, what? What is going on in this place? And one of the coolest things I saw, I'm sorry, I liked a lot of it, was there was a point where Molly and Quincy from All Ears were in their room, and they were in like a meteor field. There's a different word for it that I'm not doing well. But in the bridge training, you go through like a meteor field. Guys, help me. Asteroid field? What am I looking for?
Asteroid belt?
Asteroid field. It's just a bunch of asteroids, you know?
Rocks in space.
Rocks in space, you're floating through them. And that happens on bridge training, and you have to shoot them down or whatever. But Molly and Quincy are in their room, and they're like, is bridge training happening right now? Because if the ship is going through an asteroid field, all of the ship is going through an asteroid field.
I heard that all the panels will match up.
I was like, that's so cool. Like, it is the most immersive thing I've ever seen, and I haven't been in it yet. Like, it just, listen, I know it's expensive. I can't really wrap my head around it either. That price tag. It is less if you have less. No, it's not. It's more if you have more people. But like, people are saying like, oh, it's $6,000. It maxes out around $6,000. So just bear that in mind. 2 people is about $4,800. That's still ridiculous. That's a week in Europe. That is 2 weeks in the parks. But to me, it's like, okay, well, which would you rather do? If you value the Starcruiser more than 2 weeks in the parks, then that's your decision to make. I understand that it is a lot, and I don't want to ever, like, negate that. But I think you really, it seems like you're getting your money's worth if you choose to go down the right roads and, you know, talk to people and do different things. And there are some things that happen. The finale, I won't, like, talk about it, but did you guys see the finale?
No.
I did.
I'm avoiding the story spoilers of it all as much as I can.
That's fair. All I will say, because then I won't talk about it. It's incredible. That's chills up and down my spine. Like, it looks incredible. There are things that need to be improved. I will say that. But I saw that they use the lightsaber that we saw, the one that looks like a lightsaber, like it's just a handle, and then all of a sudden it's a lightsaber. That every time I see it on TikTok, my jaw drops, and that's just on my phone, just on my little phone. It looks great. That's all. I'll shut up now. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm just really excited about it.
I just want them to give me. Remember in The Force Awakens the little biscuit?
The buns.
Yeah,
yes.
Because you guys know that was a real that's a real effect. That wasn't CGI. Yeah. They really developed that, and like I remember.
Apparently it tastes terrible.
Yeah, where they're like, it's like, it is edible in the sense that it is safe, it has nutrition value. Taste-wise, it's basically inedible, it's disgusting, but still part of me wants to just have it.
But part of me thinks that adds to it. Like, if that's what a ration is, if that's what a portion, like, of course it's not going to be good. You think Rey's out here eating, like, cuisine? No. But it's interesting, because a couple of the, like, bunned foodstuffs kind of have that look to them. They're not like the same thing, but it's really cool. I do wish they could perfect that though, that effect. That'd be cool.
The immediate biscuit.
Yes.
The Star Wars immediate biscuit coming to a Kroger's near you.
I love it.
All right. And speaking about crying over Star Wars.
Great segue.
Let's get into The Fallen Star by Claudia Gray.
Let's do it.
Built 1,000 generations ago to keep these, the original Jedi texts.
All right. Released, I think, like on January 2nd or something like that. It's right at the beginning of the year, 1 year after the launch of the High Republic in general. This is our adult novel for the third wave of the first phase, or the something like that, for third phase of first wave, or one of those. This is the last novel in our first phase of the High Republic, and it really does tie up these this main chunk of the three main adult novels, as well as all the other stories that we're getting through the comics and the middle grade and the young adult novels and everything like that. And it was not surprising in one aspect, in that the advertisement really that we saw for the book showed Starlight Beacon in flames. And the literal name of the book is called The Fallen Star. So it's not going to be much of a spoiler to say that things happen to Starlight Beacon just based on those two things. But we are going to delve deep into spoilers, because there's really no way to talk about this book without spoilers. Because even the plot summary would be a spoiler at this point.
Sure.
Basically, if you saw any of the marketing materials leading up to this book, then you know the ending of, like, hey, Starlight Beacon explodes. Like, it's...
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the back of the book, it says, "We will watch Starlight Beacon burn." And if you look at the front of the book, there's cracks in the ship, and it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for our space station thing. So yeah, not a shocker. Not a shocker.
And one thing you mentioned, Jim, that it does a fantastic job wrapping up and serving as like this final point for phase one. Yes. Wave 3 of phase 1, I believe, is what it is.
Yes.
Very
maybe
confusing.
That's it.
Part 1C. But at the same time, wildly different in terms of structure from the first two books. The first two books have like this major battle, followed by a couple weeks of calm, followed by major battle, and the book will take place over presumably at like a month or so. Maybe Rising Storm was like a week or two, but it takes place over a extended period of time. Fallen Star, a couple hours, I think.
Oh yeah, easily, like 2 or 3 hours.
It's just like, hey, this is all unfolding in real time. Doesn't jump around planets at all. It does jump around perspectives, which, Jim, I know annoys you to no end.
No, that doesn't bother me. It depends on how they do it and how many perspectives we're dealing with.
And it felt like it was less this time around.
It was. I really enjoyed this one. I think this is the best adult novel that we've gotten for the High Republic so far.
Agree.
Because it is a much more focused storyline, And you're right. It takes place like maybe a couple days. I don't remember the beginning third of the book. Did take place over a little bit of time. But once the explosions happen, you're right. You're dealing with this in real time, and everything's kind of happening as it happens.
Yeah. This is a hell of a book. I watched Titanic 2 nights ago, and when I tell you, it's the same thing. And I mean that in the best way. Fun fact. Horror movies, and specifically like Titanic, yes, I consider Titanic a horror movie, especially the second half of it. My God, it's a comfort watch for me. If I'm having a bad anxiety day, I'm watching Titanic, and it kind of like gets everything out. And I'm not watching it for the love stuff. I don't really care very much. I'm watching it for everything else. It's ridiculous. But it's a lot of the same vibes.
His leg on the propeller. That's my favorite part.
Ooh, yeah, that's tough. Every single time I see that, I go, ooh, that's a shame. Every time. But yeah, it a lot of the things I like about that latter half of the Titanic, I love about this book. I was saying before, I'm a writer. I've written a book. It's kind of like, it's got horror thriller elements, and this book puts it to shame, and that's why Claudia Gray is published and I'm not. It made me so envious, and I feel like that's one of the highest compliments I can pay, is while I was sitting here getting absolutely terrified before someone dies, and almost every single like 3 pages that precede a death, not only was I scared out of my wits, I was like, darn it, I wish I could write like this. And that's like the highest compliment I can give someone. I mean, listen, Claudia Gray is my favorite Star Wars writer, so obviously I love this book. This is some of her best work. I think this is I need her. If she hasn't done it already, and I'm going to look it up, if she has not written a straight horror book yet, she should. I'm not going to tell her what to do, but I'd buy it in a heartbeat. So, yeah, I thought this was brilliant in that sense.
I mean, I feel like the first half of Into the Dark is like a horror book, which I think, honestly. So I hate this. I'm not as high on this book as you guys are. I definitely don't dislike it, but I go back and forth. Like every time I think about it, there's some stuff that I really like. There's some stuff I didn't like. I still am trying to separate the. Am I upset at this because the characters I liked died, and is that, and were they unearned or meaningless? Like, you know what I mean? Where I'm trying to separate my bias of like, well, I like those characters and I'm upset they died, but does that mean it's not good? And I think the answer to that is no, because for the most part, the deaths are meaningful.
Yes.
Though I'm so mad about Orla Rennie, the most interesting Jedi of this, her and Ty York are the most interesting Jedi of this whole era for me so far, and they killed her, and I was very upset.
I'm upset about that.
That's
too.
when I can't. I still like. No, I'm still mad. I'm like mad about that. But I'm trying not to let it impact like my view on the book as a whole. I think for me, I really love the breakneck pacing of the first 2 books and how it is just like. Boom, 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 action, 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 and then like a little bit of a pause, and then boom, right back into a big battle. So for this, which is much more of a slower burn. I don't know if I would call it a slow burn because, like, I mean, like, the Bantha Poodoo hits the fan immediately.
It's about a third of the way in, I feel, when the explosion happens.
Yeah, but there were definitely moments, anything that has to do with the force creatures to cut off, to basically drive Jedi insane is amazing. Like, that was stuff where I'm like, I don't care about, like, I got to a point where I'm like, I do not care about the beacon falling apart. Get back to these creatures and how they terrify the Jedi. I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
maybe I'm starting to convince myself that I did like this book a lot more than I thought.
You have distance between you and the end of the book, so that definitely affects a view of it. So that's fair.
I don't know if I mentioned on the... Yeah, I did mention in the beginning. I finished it a couple weeks ago. But it is... I will say, regardless of how I feel about the deaths themselves, I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to like marketing Star Wars and like Marvel and any sort of like big name properties, the marketing is almost always over-promising on its impact. Whereas with this book, it's like, oh no, this really is like completely shakes the status quo of the High Republic moving forward. Dare I say, to use a cliche we hear all the time when it comes to Star Wars stories, this is the Empire Strikes Back of this storytelling era so far. Of like, this is ending on a super down note. You don't really know how things are going to get better from here. I mean, you even have like a beloved character is just sort of missing, and you have to have another character go after him. I refuse to believe Buryaga is dead, by the way.
He's not. There's no way. I'm going to say it. I've said it many times. I'll say it again. No body, no death. Yeah. If I don't see a body, or if I'm not expressly told this person is dead, they're not dead. And there was way too much like, I'm not giving up on Buryaga. I'm not giving up on him. This, that. And I was like, okay, he's not dead.
I refuse to believe they're going to do Bail Zettifar that dirty again.
No, like, he's lost too much. He's good.
Every time I come on to talk the Tons about the High Republic, we seem to be like, why do the writers want to put Bell through so much pain? Like, why is he constantly bad things? And when they had that happen where he said, like, I can't feel Burry anymore, I was like, you cannot do this. Stop this. No. Let my mans have a little bit of happiness. Let him be chill for a minute. Like, you can't keep doing this to him. So that... Again, I keep sort of kind of convincing myself like that's indicative of a good story, that it made me feel that much emotion, even if the emotion was anger and sort of hatred.
It was definitely a thriller, especially for that first third of the book when the Nameless. I saw they were calling them the Nameless, the animals or whatever they are, the force creatures that were sucking people gray. Whole first part is very suspenseful. I got words.
It's suspicious.
Yes,
you're doing great, honey.
and like all of a sudden you start to get the deaths, and the first death we get was one of those. I'm like, really? This is the death we're gonna get? Do you guys remember who the first death was?
Yeah, comic relief death person.
Was Reginald Call, who just appeared in this book, and I'm like,
the second he got introduced, I'm like, dead.
I'm like,
he's got a red shirt on. He's done.
Yeah.
I'm
for sure.
Well, when he died, I'm like, really? We're gonna kill off the new guy? We're not gonna like really have any impactful deaths? I was wrong.
The body count is so high, and like. You think not to cut you off, Jim, I'm sorry. You think okay. Like, oh, we lost someone that way. We surely aren't going to lose 2 people that way. We're surely not going to lose a third that way. And it just kept going. And we lost like 4 people, including Loden Greatstorm, like 5 people, the same way. 4 and a half, because we don't know if Indira, right?
Indira Stokes.
Buryaga's master?
No, she's gone. Indira Bell's master.
Second master.
Right.
She's
Reginald. She's alive, but she's not doing great.
Yeah, the comic actually has some other people who are also impacted separately on their hunt for Lorna D.
Tarek and Sarah.
Right.
So just to run down the body count, you have Reginald Cole, who is introduced as the first Jedi with a big sense of humor. So I at first was kind of like, hey, this guy reminds me of me. And then I was like, oh, no, he's going to die so fast. And then he does. And then we have next, Orla goes looking for him.
Yep.
Orla Jareni dies, the Wayseeker. Also, after finding out that she had been helping Elzer Mann work through his emotional struggles. So that was great. And then you have Nib Assek, Buryaga's
that's a Buryaga's master. Yep.
Yeah.
She goes after Orla, correct? Basically, they keep making the mistake of being like, somebody's missing. Well, send somebody else after her.
Well,
Yeah.
who was it?
Yeah.
Was it Belle that said, "I've seen in the horror movies that we should split up," and
I
Buryaga
loved
made
that.
fun of him?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a Fright Hollow? I was like, I have to write that down because Fright Hollow is my new favorite thing. Like, I was like, has anyone else ever used that terminology? Because it's brilliant. A Fright Hollow. Done. I was out. I was like, correct. That's what they are now. They're not horror movies. They're Fright Hollows. Excellent.
After Nib, you have, I think Nib is the last
Nib's the last one in this book, yeah.
of the nameless deaths, which they
Yes.
do. They do get an official name in the last issue of Trail of Shadows, by the way. I believe they're called the Shiri Karai.
Oh, that's
called.
right.
The
yes.
hell are they? Do you want to tell me what the hell they are?
You
Do we know yet?
get
They
a
barely
picture
explain.
of
Great.
parts of them. You get
Oh,
like
what they actually look like, yeah.
yeah, you get a
cool. All right.
claw and a little bit of the eyes, facial kind of in shadow, but it's you don't really get a good look at them even there.
And then you get to see Torben buck naked, which is not a joke. It's a real thing. It's
Well,
awesome.
he has underwear on.
He has a loin on. He does keep the cloth on, but it's just real funny.
It keeps the cloth on.
But then after Nib, so that's it with the deaths to the nameless. But then you have Stellan. Stellan
Yeah.
dies.
Buryaga,
Buryaga-
Question mark.
maybe.
Yes. Get
Yeah.
to a point that Belle says, like, I can't feel him anymore. He feels cut off. What happened? Elzar tells Belle, like, no, he sacrificed himself saving us. But then Belle's like, no, I don't believe you, Elzar. You's the liar.
Yeah, we got
so we're not...
Well, we also got the death of the best guy to die. Not even the nemesis. He was just annoying. I can't
was
remember
his
his
name?
name.
Coley Lynn. Coley Lynn?
Yes.
I would punch that man. There's not many people in the world that I would actually physically injure. I don't think. Not by name. But he's one of them. If he were real, if I could will him into existence and I could punch him, I would. I hate that guy. The fact that he just like makes these jumps in logic that drive me bananas. That he's like, if the Jedi could save us, they already would have by now. And it's like, buddy, that's not how anything works. Like, that's not how any of this works. And he just like makes stuff up all the time that he genuinely seems to believe, which just makes him more annoying. And then he's like, I don't care that you've got a plan that might actually work. I'm gonna kill everybody. It's just so I can, like, he is an absolute narcissistic maniac, and I'm so happy he's dead.
But the best part is, Leox did almost exactly what he was planning to do.
Almost. But after a couple other things had happened.
I know, but it's like almost
Yeah.
the same thing.
I just love
Jeez.
that Claudia Gray truly introduced a new character just to really make the reader hate them, and then to,
Then
in a
kill 'em.
very satisfactory way, kill them.
By
Excellent.
my favorite character,
Of course he is.
Oh my gosh.
Geode.
Geode's great.
What's the other pilot's name? It's something Pava, right? No.
Effie?
No. The long beam pilots who are from Light of the Jedi.
The couple?
Is it Joss Arden?
Yes.
Yes, the couple.
Joss and something. I'll find it.
Pika?
Something
Pika.
like that. Yep.
Joss
Yes.
and Pika. Him
Yeah.
getting
Pika
upset.
Adrian.
Him getting
Yeah.
upset that Geode keeps hitting on his wife.
Flirting
Yeah.
with his wife.
So
he's like,
funny.
He's like, your crew member is flirting with my wife, and I'm not happy. It's like, Leox,
It's a rock.
you're fine. Leox is not a problem. He's like, it's not Leox. And you see her sitting on Geode, laughing. I'm like,
So
Geode's
good.
the best.
And that to me is one of those things, like, so Geode has popped up in I think like one or two of the comics, like
Yes,
in High Republic Adventures, he popped up. And in a visual sense, it doesn't. It is as absurd as it sounds. But in the written form, Geode's a perfect character, and I love him.
He's
Claudia,
great. I
Claudia
often
Gray.
picture...
Well, hold on.
Jim.
Claudia Gray introduced Geode into the dark, and like she knows how to write him. Like
Yeah. I always picture if you're a Pokemon person, I picture Nosepass. Like, look up Nosepass right now. You'll laugh. Because that's what I picture as Geode. But what an interesting character. There's no movement, really. Right? There's no movement.
Yeah.
There's no dialogue. He just does a couple things that you're like, I get this Rock's personality. I understand. And then he's responsible for killing Coley Lynn. And I laughed so hard at my book.
And they set it up so well.
Yeah.
About the, like, oh my word, she set it up so well with the magnetization of the deck first with the gun, so that you knew that if something could magnetize, it would bounce the bullet around. Saying that Geode can magnetize or not magnetize at will, and then him jumping in front of the bullet. Or him jumping in front of the person. I don't remember who he is protecting. Oh no, it was like a little girl.
He was protecting child, right? Joss's wife, I thought.
No, it was a kid. It was a little girl.
It was a kid. Yeah, it was a kid. You're right.
It's a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, and he jumped in front of the little kid, which we never see him actually move. He jumped in front, and then like Coley Lynn forgets that he can magnetize on will.
Yeah.
He forgot the age-old rule of Chekhov's magnetization. You can't bring up magnetization in the first act and expect it not to happen again in the third. It's just
right.
It's the oldest trick in the book, Coley. You fool.
Wow. Yes. That's absolutely brilliant. But I just wanted to bring up, to go back a little bit. I just noticed something about the cover of this book. Everyone but Belle is either dead or hurt or presumed dead.
And like, Belle is emotionally dead after this book.
Correct. So you got Belle, you got Stellan, who's dead, you've got Indira, who's not doing great, Buryaga, who we don't know where the heck he is, and Orla, who's dead. And I'm just sitting here like, I was looking at the book and I was like, I wonder why Elzar isn't on this cover. And it's still, I'm like, maybe he's gonna die, and then he's like the only one alive. I was like, never mind.
Yeah. We also lost Chansey Yarrow, who is from previous stories. She died by the most brutal way I could imagine, being sliced in half by Elzar.
Oh my gosh, that was tough.
The development of Elzar over the last two books, and this very slow decline, followed by a little bit of a reprieve back to a decline of him sort of falling, not necessarily falling to the dark side, but like really losing control, has been one of the most fascinating aspects of this era so far. In an era that has a ton of wonderful character development. But for some reason, all the writers are like, there's two characters we're really going to harm. Belle Zettifar and Elzar, but Elzar is going to do it to himself.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I hate, as much as like this is part of Star Wars, it's just a part that I don't like, that it's like, oh yeah, the one guy who's like in love with someone can't possibly avoid the dark side. And I'm just like, to me, that I won't get into it, but that is just a core issue with George Lucas that is now just part of the DNA of Star Wars, and, you know, part of the misogyny that is in Star Wars, that obviously this guy can't be in love with a woman because she's gonna ruin him, even though the argument is he's doing it to himself. But you know what I'm saying? Like, of course, it's the one who's in love with this dope woman who's clearly falling to the dark side, and it just makes me nuts. It makes me nuts.
Avar Chris, she, although almost barely in the book, I would say she's not even in the book.
Biggest complaint,
she's not really in it.
She's not in the book. If you read, that's what I was catching up on all the High Republic comic series. Is she is in the comic series, which is the reason she's not in the book. She is not
She's not doing
blameless
great?
either.
She's not doing
not.
well.
They're both. They're
Okay.
both on parallel courses. Like
Interesting.
she
Ooh.
is going bananas, like dark side bananas in her own downward spiral.
Oh, I love that. That I live for.
Their concurrent storyline is, again, it's one of my favorite aspects. And I like
Okay.
when Elzar sees Avar at the end of this, and it's kind of like, I can't even look at her because of what I know I'm now capable of. I was like, yeah, that's good. That's good stuff.
That
not good as in like I enjoy this, but as in like, man,
right.
that hits.
Right. Okay, well, I need to read these comics then because.
Well, that's why I was letting you know.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's why I was letting you know.
sense.
I'm like, it's not just him. Like they are doing the same thing to her.
That makes me feel better. But yeah, it's
But
just,
you are right.
Yeah.
George Lucas's overall commitment issues from the 70s have now created an entire franchise in which love, ew. We don't do no. That corrupts us. Gross.
Right. And yet, unless you're Kanan, which so far in my Rebels watching, that seems to be going well for him. But that maybe because Hera's dope. I don't know.
So it goes so well.
It goes great.
Yeah.
Nothing bad comes of it.
No issues whatsoever.
Never mind.
This reminds me of when I still have the screenshot. I never sent it in the Star Wars Discord channel because my dad used to be in it. I don't know if he's in it anymore. But my dad started reading Light of the Jedi a couple months ago. And he got like halfway through it. He texted me. He's like, I'm enjoying it. But like, man, I'm really loving Bell and Loden. I love their relationship. And I was just like,
no.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Things might happen. Yeah.
All I said was like, cool.
Now I'm really upset.
So the last death was Leox, and by this point, who did not assume he wasn't dead?
Oh, I was just like, damn it, they killed him. This sucks.
Yeah, like because
I was a little like no body, no death, but I didn't know how. So
it was weird. Like he kind of like I don't know if I missed it, but he kind of got like sucked out or something, and sucked out like during the the opening of the bay doors. And you're right. It's like they killed him. Like, that's just like him and Buryaga. I was both like, okay, I assume they're not dead. And then Leox comes back at the very end, but it was like after so many of the major character deaths, like. Who wouldn't rule him out? Like,
yeah, right.
I both groaned at and laughed at the fact that what saved him, a literal parachute.
A parachute.
Which
makes sense.
And
but
again,
that was planted in the beginning. Like I'm sure you're about to say. I'm so sorry, Connor.
I was going to say, we have discussed the rule of Chekhov's magnetism. We've yet to discuss the rules of Chekhov's analog tools because. Correct. Leox goes on and on at multiple points, like, there's something about not relying on technology. I'm trying to do a McConaughey voice.
All right. He actually says, all right in the book.
He does, yeah. But, he's like, it's
together.
just something about when technology fails, you need to know how to do it the old-fashioned way. So they, again, it's just Claudia Gray being kind of cheeky and being like, I planted the seed. Like, I just never expected there to be an actual parachute in Star Wars. And I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
No,
you didn't put it together that he is Matthew McConaughey?
No, didn't. Nope.
That's like if you look at visualizations of him, he is Matthew McConaughey.
And
oh, that's funny.
And if you listen to any of the audio of him, he always does a Matthew McConaughey impersonation, and he says "all right" in the book.
Yeah, and Claudia Gray said at a StarWars.com interview, like wholeheartedly, yes, like I wrote in my head like this is Matthew McConaughey. Like that's he's supposed to sound like
specifically 90s Matthew McConaughey too.
Yeah, and it works.
I love that. I can't even. I think that's great. I think that's too funny. I gotta reread the book right now. But I do want to back up real quick to Chansey's death.
Oh yes.
Because also another Pokemon I couldn't get out of my head.
Chansey.
Literally Chansey. But I just remember getting to that point and like, oh, like she's really trying for it. This is great. And then And I literally said out loud I'm reading the book, and I don't talk to myself usually when I'm reading books. TV, different thing. But when I'm reading, I don't normally say anything out loud. But I out loud went, oh no. It was a really good, you know exactly what's about to happen, but you gotta keep going instead, anyway. And it hurt so bad. But what a well-written death. How heartbreaking. That you actually are wow, this person really almost turned it around. Really almost did a good thing.
And she
after being
wasn't
a former Nile.
all that bad throughout the book. She clearly wasn't with the Nile. She's just out it for herself. She's not out to hurt anybody else. And and she is trying to save the station to save themselves. But I feel like they could have gone another route to do that with how smart she is supposed to be. And to have her do this and then end up being killed by the Jedi, you're right. It's one of those oh, you gotta be kidding me.
It was a brutal scene.
And then it reinforces Nan's entire worldview. It's brilliant. You had an opportunity to maybe pull her back a little bit, and instead you proved her right. You just absolutely blew the progress you made. And it's brilliant. Claudia Gray is a champion. That's all I can say.
Well, and especially after, basically, Chansey spends the whole novel, most of the time she's in it, kind of explaining to Nan and being a bit of a savior to, is it Nan or Nan?
The audio does Nan.
Nan. But kind of being this minor savior to Nan of constantly trying to de-enforce within her of the Nile are dumb. They're they're almost a cult. They're just pirates. They're not, you don't need to assign your life to them. You can, now granted she's you can be such a better criminal elsewhere. It's not she's telling Nan to go on and start a sanctuary for charhounds. She's you have such such an ability to break so many other laws, but she is trying to she is trying to be to Nan what she wasn't to Silvestri. So there was this kind of lovely mother-daughter relationship that you're she's trying to channel what she couldn't do for her own daughter to Nan. This is so heartwarming that, oh god, she just got sliced in half. In front of Nan, and now Nan hates the Jedi more than she's ever hated them. It's just, again, so good. The most of, probably when it comes to character deaths outside of comedic death, Sacrifice Man, who's what I'm going to call him. Outside of him, Chansey's death is the death of a character who I probably cared least about. Not because she was disinteresting or anything, but just, I was way more interested in all the other Jedi characters. That death, though, ended up sticking with me way harder than anybody else's. By a mile, because it was just so impactful for two other characters' development. That
it was so brutal too.
Yeah,
I got the vibes.
Just a death. More than just a death.
You remember in Force Awakens when, in the beginning, Kylo brings up the lightsaber to cut down Lor Santeca? That was the intensity I felt in that of just pure anger and hatred coming down to just eradicate her. And just such an incredible scene.
Yeah, really, really good.
You know what? It turns out I do like this book, guys.
There you go. There it is.
You're welcome.
We didn't even talk about the Nile.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up. The 3 Nile that we get in the book. Supposedly there's more Nile on the ship. Connor and I were talking about this before, that the comic has some Nile in the upper part of the station where we don't really see.
Interesting.
And Marchion Road does say that there's 7 Nile that he sent. We only see the 3, of which, hilariously, I don't remember the species of the third one, but one is a Powan, who from Revenge of the Sith, with basically the vertical red lines.
From the planet Utapau.
Yeah, from Utapau. Another is an Ithorian, and then I don't remember the third. And they're trying to be nonchalant, the most standout species you can get. And they're just kind of wandering around, no, we're not doing anything bad. It's clearly I see you guys before. You're walking around
Yeah.
in, like, places you're not supposed to be.
Yeah, like y'all are trying to be slick and it's not working. I just was really interested in the politics of the Gaze Electric and what was going on that ship. I was like, ma'am, what is Marchion's getting laid? What's happening? I was just so confused as to what was going on, and like I didn't see that coming. Maybe I forget the senator's name. But I didn't.
Staros.
She like is around more than just in this book, right? Like she was at the Republic Fair, was she not?
Yes. Well, her daughter Avon Staros is in one of the first books and does pop up actually quite frequently.
She's in
right?
A Test of Courage.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Quick side note: Test of Courage, best of the middle grade level books. Test of Courage is wonderful. The other ones,
very good.
Hit or miss. Well, actually, sorry, there's only 2 more. I haven't read the third one. The second one really didn't like it. But the Test of Courage is wonderful. It's a book. Yep. I mean, Test of Courage is a book about death and grief for children, and it handles it wonderfully. I could talk about that book for an hour.
I love
but yeah,
that
she
book,
also Avon, who is what's her mom's name? I keep forgetting.
Something with a G.
Gira. Yeah, Gira Staros. Marchion's absolute utter disdain for this woman is so unsettling.
It's upsetting because you're like, you're with her in some senses. This is real. I was just like very, like you said, it's very unsettling. But I think like it just like adds a level of horror. Like I guess as a woman that you're like, yo, is that possible? Yeah. Like that you're sleeping with this person and he's like, I want her dead. Like obviously it is possible, but it's very upsetting.
He wants worse than that. Like he's like, I'm not sure if she said something or she bumped into something during my major speech, but I hope that they analyze the recording and they realize it's her and her entire world comes crumbling down around her. Yeah, and I'm like,
very intense.
Whoa, like that is worse than like killing her. That is like wishing her entire like world be destroyed.
And
that's a lot even for a villain. That's a lot.
It definitely, and it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was for something that like, he just like, he made a comment about her, like, not like, kind of being smug about it, but like, oh, she thinks she's too important in this and she's really not, and for that he wishes these horrible things on her. This, for how little Roe is in this book, because I mean he's in like out of the 368 pages he's in like 15 of them. He's really not in it that much, but it does go a long way of making you realize like, wow, Roe is just,
he sucks.
Awful. Like, there's the comic book coming out where they're trying to give you like a little bit of an origin in his drive, which is good, and it's giving you motivations. But like, I kind of enjoy this about Roe. They're not really trying to make you feel empathetic towards him at all. Like, he's not going to be one of those villains that you're going to be like, oh, he's the bad guy, but I see his point. I get where he's coming from, blah, 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 blah. It's
The Vader aspect, where you tried to get, basically you saw him as the kid, Anakin, and you tried to, you empathize with his fall, despite Vader being a terrible villain to begin with. And so here, he is a terrible person. He has always been a terrible person, and in everything we've seen him in, he is a terrible person.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and rather than, like with this the introductory comic, Eye of the Storm that they're doing, rather than try to be like, oh, these terrible things happen to him and it's very sad and you should kind of feel bad for him. They're more of just like, he comes from a culture where this is kind of normal and this is how he acts now. And it is what it is. But yeah, and I think honestly it's refreshing because I do believe there's been a bit of a problem within Star Wars to always try to add this like moral gray area to its villains, where its villains aren't outright bad, or not necessarily the villains, but the bad guys. Like we see a lot of stories that come from the Empire perspective that are like, oh, see, like the Empire, some of them are just, complicated people. And I like the idea of Roe is like, no, Roe is just a bad dude. There is no question about it. There's no, like, and don't get me wrong, stories that have a morally questionable villain are great stories. but sometimes you just need a bad guy who is just a bad guy. That. And I like that about Marchion Ro.
Yeah, agreed. I know we're going to wrap up, but I just want to say if anything happens to Ember the Charhound, I'm done. That's what I'll close with. That's my closing thought. Listen, you could do whatever to the people. You hurt the Charhound? Listen, there was one worse thing that they could do to Belle than take Buryago away. And that is do any darn thing to Ember. And
Ember was brought up a few times with, like, I hope Ember's okay. And
yeah,
speaking
right?
of Jedi without attachments, Belle is the worst.
Oh, yeah. Belle ain't doing well with that.
Yeah, that's what, and with everyone else, they kind of bring up, oh, there's feeling attachments, this is bad. With Belle, they're kind of like, it's fine.
It's his pet, it's fine. He's doing great.
It's been a rough year for him.
Yeah.
He'll be okay.
He's lost a lot.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just want good things to happen to Belle.
Yeah,
is that too much to ask?
Apparently.
I just want one writer to give him a good ending. That's it. I'll end on that. Just, justice for Belle. Happiness for Belle.
Okay. So, Nicole,
yes.
What would you rate the book as?
Ooh. What is the scale? What are we doing? Stars, numbers. What am I doing?
Whatever you want. I would say out of 10
whatever
points.
I'm doing.
10-point scale is mine, but you could do whatever you want.
10-point scale?
Out of 10 fallen stars, how many rise?
I'm trying to think of a really good metric to use, and I'm going to overthink it. I'm going to give this book 9 Kyber crystals. No, 8.5 Kyber crystals. Yeah, I got nothing else. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, no book is perfect. There were moments where this dragged a little bit in the beginning for me, but I read the last 200 pages in one sitting, so I really enjoyed it, and Claudia Gray is my favorite. So somewhere between an 8.5 and a 9.
Connor?
I think prior to this discussion we had, I would have probably, don't yell at me for this, probably would have given this like a 6.5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after talking about it more and like really exploring my thoughts...
3
with other people. Yeah, it gets a 2. It got worse. No, I think I'd give it. I agree. 8.5. It has. There are still some things. I think the pace.
We brought up the score.
Oh, definitely. I think there's still like the pace still drags a little bit for me. But I think it gets high marks for not just having the promised high body count, but having the body count mostly be impactful. There are very few meaningless deaths in this. Most of them are very impactful and really advance the story or leave other characters completely in disarray. And it does a very good job tying in the rest of the books and the rest of the characters as well as it can. So yeah, 8.5 rising stars out of 10 fallen stars from
Yeah, I'd say we barely even talked about Stellan Gios' death, and he was like easily one of the most impactful characters in the entire High Republic series.
Yeah, and he's like
he's the guy.
He's like on his deathbed before he even dies because he faced off with the nameless Sharik Arai, and then still manages to like keep the station from falling apart. We didn't even get into it because despite the fact that he's such a major character, his death was the final one, but it came after so many other major deaths too that it was almost a little overshadowed.
Yeah.
So I actually, I always write my book reviews before we talk about the podcast, so I can get all my ideas kind of out for myself. I wasn't able to do that for this one because I just finished it yesterday, but I did. I did kind of organize my thoughts, and I literally gave it an 8.5. In my thoughts before you guys even said anything. So that's I guess we're all in agreement that it is.
Look at us go.
It is one of the definitely better of the books out there because that's pretty high markings, at least in my grading scale. 8.5 and above is usually I would definitely recommend these sort of books.
Yeah.
Also, side note, while we're talking about Claudia Gray, this is the first time I've been on since I finished reading Lost Stars off of everybody's recommendations, and that is not only my favorite Star Wars novel of all time by a mile now, that's one of my favorite books ever. I cried so hard finishing it. I was on a plane on my way to Seattle and closed the book, tears coming down my face as the flight attendant came up asking if I needed anything. Not because she saw me cry, but because it was just, she was coming down the aisle. I was like, I'm fine. That's all I'll say about it. If you haven't read Lost Stars, and you just heard us wax poetically about how good Claudia Gray is, Lost Stars is incredible Star Wars.
It really is. It is one of my favorites as well. It's one of those that anybody who says, what book can I pick up? You can pick up Lost Stars and having only seen the original trilogy.
And it's incredible.
All right. And with that, let's call it a day. You can reach us, email us at Talkin Tauntauns at AIPTcomics.com. You can contact us on Twitter, at Talkin Tauntauns. Also, rate, review, share the show. We love to hear anything from our listeners. Also, we are apparently, at one point in time, the #1 sci-fi podcast in Norway. And so I'd like to thank all of our Norwegian fans for listening to us. That literally made my week when I saw that. I don't know why, but I'm not going to question it. So with that, I hope you have a great week, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for having me.